just got down on the mountain here in Grant, tagged a bird first thing this morning.
That's what I'm talking about.
So Colby and I are coming out and we're gonna see if we can get on a bird here. It's a bluebird skies, high pressure, low wind. I'm gonna try to make it happen. So I'm out here on the point of boom. This is just a great listening point. We've got a bunch of ridges here out in front of us. We got several burns, so turkeys love fresh burns. I'm here on this point because there was a tom talking pretty good this morning. Grant and I were just on the other side of this holler up on top of this ridge when he shot his tom, but we heard another bird on this side. He was getting with it, so we're gonna see if we can hear one and get around on him and hopefully get bird number 2 for the day on the ground. Just heard a bird. I think it's probably the bird I heard this morning. Crow called, heard him gobble. He's right out here on this point, so we're gonna boogie around, try to get on this bird.
I knew where that tom was, and I kind of knew how they worked through that area, and I believed Colby and I could get up on top of the ridge, walk the top of the ridge down through a food plot we call Big Boom, get just inside the timber and be up above that tom and try to call him in. This was ideal for several reasons. I like to have the high ground on a tom. If you got to call a tom up the hill to you, he never really knows what's coming up in front of him, so he's likely to close that distance and not hang up as often as if he was coming down on top of you. I also like this area because that food plot was to our back. And once again, I want to drag that tom up the mountain. If he thinks that hen's out there in the food plot and he can't see her, it's a better chance he's gonna come on by within range. Things were quiet at first, but a few minutes later, that tom gobbled, and he wasn't far down off the ridge. I thought that tom was coming, but unfortunately, I started hearing some leaves crunching, and I heard some soft yelps. There were hens in the area, and it was likely those hens were between me and that tom.
There's another bird coming to our left into the food plot. I can hear it.
Having the hens between me and the tom wasn't ideal, but I waited to see what would happen. And as I waited, I started hearing a tom firing off to the south, and boy, was he getting hot.
Man, I need to leave that bird. That bird's hot.
The tom in front of us wasn't gobbling, he wasn't coming in. I couldn't take it anymore. I told Colby, we've got to go to the south and hunt that tom that's firing off.
All right, there's a hot bird over on 50 Acre Ridge, so he's hot. So Colby and I, we gave this bird 30 minutes. He never came up, so we're gonna go over, get on this bird, see if we can make it happen on this bird. We'll see what happens.
It sounded like the tom was working up the mountain to the top of the ridge heading south, and that made sense. I knew from years past that toms loved to get up on top of that ridge mid-morning, midday, and gobble. And there's several reasons. They can get up top, and they can be heard, but they can also listen. On the south side of that slope is a native vegetation area, and it's great nesting habitat for hens and for hens to go out and bug. So toms can gobble and listen for hens in the area. It's just a great area on that narrow little ridge top for toms to be during the mid-morning. Knowing where that tom was likely headed, Colby and I started putting rocks under those lacrosse boots, and we made our way to the east side of that ridge and started working up the spine towards the tom. As we worked up the mountain, I'd occasionally hit the crow call to see if I could locate that tom. I had to wonder if that tom maybe drifted off, but my gut told me that tom was probably pretty close to that saddle.
Say we just risk it. Get up here to the saddle, set up, call up, and see what happens. Okay, here's what's happening. We were walking. I thought he was probably in this saddle. And sure enough, we're about 100 yards from the saddle. And he gobbles. I think he heard us walking. He gobbled to our walking. So we sat down immediately right here on the road. I think he may swing right, or he may come up this road. It's going to be tight. But it's what we got. So I'm going to throw out one little call. See if he gobbles, see if he comes in. We'll see what happens. Okay. I'm just going to see that. He may walk right up this road. Or he may go to the right. Just got to be careful. Watch.
Now I talked about that narrow ridge top, and we were on a narrow portion of that ridge, and I suspected that tom was likely going to fall off on the north side of that ridge and swing to our right.
Sounded like he turned right. He's drilling, spinning around. I see him. Okay, he's coming to the right. He's coming straight at me. He's gonna come out to the road, I think. Here, no, hold on, don't. Okay, he's going to the right. You see him? Yeah.
I locked the red dot on that burst fast fire right on that tom's head and waited for a clear shot.
Yeah! Yeah! Woo! That's what we're talking about. Running ridges right there. Yeah! Folks, that was an Ozark Mountain hunt right there. And it doesn't get any better. Oh my word. Yeah!
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, Lacrosse Footwear, Moultrie Mobile, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, RTP Outdoors, Fourth Arrow, Hunt Stand, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, National Land Realty, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Well, I gotta tell you, it was a roller coaster on the feet and a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, there was a lot of ups and downs on this hunt, let me tell you. Colby and I were on the ridge to the north, trying to work a bird. He went quiet, couldn't get him in. And this tom was hot. And I told Colby, we have to go try. And this is a hard ridge to hunt. It's very narrow up top. Birds slip around the edges. It's tough to get on birds here. But we walked all the way from the bottom of this mountain all the way to the top here. And toms usually love being in this little saddle, which is where this bird was. And there's
nesting habitat, native grasses and forbs here off this south slope. And toms can run this little ridge, gobble right next to nesting habitat. And they love trolling this ridge midday looking for hens. And sure enough, that's what this tom was doing. And we walked, I don't know, maybe 80 yards from this little saddle, and I think he heard us walking on the gravel and he gobbled. We immediately sat down. I gave out a few calls. Less than 5 minutes later, here he comes through the timber and put on a show and got the old ticker thumping this morning. And the Winchester did the job. We're probably 35 yards from the tree, and this is bird number 2 on the second day of Missouri's spring turkey season. This hunt happened fairly quick. By the time I heard the gobble, we got set down and he worked in, it was only a few minutes. But when we slow down and really consider the entire hunt, there's several great turkey hunting lessons that I'd like to share. This may sound like a gimme, but I think it's important to note. Days that are favorable for listening, those clear, high pressure, great gobbling days, and being able to get to a location that you can cover a lot of ground with your ears, hearing a tom, well, that can be key to planning an effective hunt. Even when Colby and I set up on the first tom, we still were in a favorable listening location. We're high on the point of a ridge, and that was key to hearing that tom. If we'd been back over on the other side of the ridge, down in the bowl, trying to call that tom around through the timber, I may not have heard that tom to the south. Reading the situation, knowing that tom that was just over the hill but had some hens, he probably wasn't coming in anytime soon. But making the decision to go after a tom that seemed to be in between hens, not with hens, and was gobbling hard, well, those toms, if you can locate them, they're often much more receptive to calling. Another key to this hunt was that as Colby and I walked up the mountain, I only used a locator call to try to locate that tom. I didn't hit my pot call and try to fire him off, because then, man, that tom could have started cutting the distance and caught me off guard and in a location that wasn't ideal for a shot. But by getting up the mountain and cutting the distance, I was able to get close to that tom, and when he gobbled, I was able to find the tree that was ideal for Colby and I to sit up against and give us a good view of where I believe that tom was gonna walk.
That's what we're talking about, running ridges right there. Yeah!
Understanding how a tom may use the habitat or the terrain to his benefit, and when he may be more responsive to calling, and that could even be throughout the breeding season or within a specific period of a day. Man, if you understand how all those work together, it can up your chances to punching a tag and not eating tag soup. I hope you're able to get outside this week, maybe chase a tom, or maybe you're starting to get ready for food plot season. But whatever you're doing, I hope you slow down, enjoy creation, and more importantly, listen to what the Creator is saying to you and the purpose He has for your life. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.